Does anybody have any thoughts or feelings in regards to either the meditation or the 5 remembrances?
Yeah, I had something. When you said delivering the 5 remembrances can be dangerous or hard to take if you deliver them to someone who's not ready, that was really true in my life on Father's Day when I spoke to my father who was really suffering just his old age and kind of a lifetime of being dry and kind of hurting in his body, and people are dying all around him, and I delivered that message, and I really wanted him to get it. I really wanted that sort of kind of craving that, I had something that he needed that could help him, and it really wasn't accepted very well, and it didn't go off very, very well. He just thought it was something like not attainable, and I guess I'm wondering if you can pick up these sorts of, like, whether you can really start at any time if you're willing to get ready for, your death, and to kind of be released from the suffering. If you can take this to heart.
In my opinion, this stuff can happen right up to and including the moment of death. And you may have in fact planted the seed that allows him to cross over to whatever the other side is in a state of peace, possibly even bliss, because the kernel of knowledge that you gave him at that time comes to him. I think it's within this stuff that we're reading that he could literally experience enlightenment at that moment because he had heard it and he was able to open to it. The way I think about most of us in this world is that the majority of us, at least that haven't gotten any sort of acceptance, are sort of holding our breath until we get to our deathbed. And we're sort of every day, it's like, God, I can hardly wait I can hardly wait for Friday, I can hardly wait for this job, till I retire, till the kids move out, till I can collect my Social Security. So you're always waiting to get okay, and always sort of holding the breath. And you get on your deathbed, and with the people that I've worked with as they've been dying, there's usually some wrestling going on between them and whatever powers they do believe in or don't believe in. And oftentimes as they get close to death, what they don't believe in and what they do believe in changes a considerable amount. But they get to their deathbed, and just before they cross over, you often see them go, oh, that's what it's all about. And boom, they're gone. They let go. Their whole life they were living in a state of waiting and anticipation of being okay. They held their breath the whole time, basically waiting for the difficult life to get over. And then they have that, just that short little bit of peace, and they let go. And I think from what I've read in the Buddhist teachings, it's very possible to have a spontaneous enlightenment. According to the teachings, it used to happen to people who ran into Buddha fairly regularly, it seems. I think there's a couple things going on there in that story that you told, and that's very powerful. And one is that I think you really very well could have really helped your dad, whether you ever come to know that from him or not. And two, the second of the eightfold path is about right intention. And karma is determined, how it's going to treat us later in this life or the next life, according to these teachings, is based on your intention. And when you gave the 5 remembrances to your dad, your intention was to be helpful. And so there is no negative karma accrued if the outcome didn't come as you might have desired. And in fact, you actually don't know what the outcome is. You know what the immediate reaction was, but you don't actually know what the outcome was. But your intention was good. So I think that's really important, is when we work on all this stuff, is to, as part of the skillfulness we're developing, is say, what actually is driving me to do this? What actually is my motivation? You know, why am I doing the 9th step? Why am I giving this information to my father or to my child? And that is part of why this is a lifelong process. Because the skills, our ability to notice nuances and subtleties can continue to develop right up until, you know, we hit our deathbed. And as a matter of fact, I would be surprised if that didn't happen, rather than if it did continue to happen. So your side of the street's clean with that.
It sure didn't feel that way while it was going on.
Yeah,
I was accused of, you know, being a bunch of, like, you know, psychology and, you know, not accessible, and you know, I have to say that, you know, I ended the conversation with "enjoy your suffering," so I don't know how clean my side of the street is. Just
might have been a little weak there. Absolutely fine. Did I see you again?
Hi. Yeah, when you were talking about, you know, the whole, like, holding your breath thing, the fear of death or whatever. No, I feel like I've spent most of my adult life in that, and I think that's where some of my hyperventilating comes from, kind of holding my breath. So, you know, being in a 12-step program for a while, I've been working on letting go and letting God, you know, at least up here, you know, practicing, turning my life over every morning. And so I really wanted to get my, you know, head and my heart kind of in line and stop just kind of talking about letting go and letting God, and maybe like doing something a little dangerous, you know, because I was always protecting my life. You know, I wouldn't fly, I wouldn't do anything that, you know, I could actually die. So I got tired of hearing myself say, no thank you, I can't do that, you know. I got tired of being boring. So because I'm an alcoholic, I couldn't just go somewhere quickly. I had to go to another country on a yoga retreat. I went to Costa Rica in February. And, you know, I wanted to walk through the fear. I'm just so sick of being afraid. And it was just really ironic. I obviously made it. You know, I was on the 3 planes to get there, not really sure I would. And walking through a fear when you're actually having some, you know, you're having real fear that that plane will crash. It's pretty challenging. You know, I had to prepare to die, literally, to get on the plane. So the flights really went beautifully. But the horseback riding, not so much. I thought that was going to be the real easy day, and I got thrown off a horse. So, you know, life is just, you know, so now I'll fly, but I'm not getting on a horse. You know, terrified of horses now. But that will not affect the quality of my living. That will not affect the quality of my life. I'm so grateful that I wasn't injured more than I was. And you know, when I got back, I still was beating myself up because I did not enjoy the flying. And so many people said to me, you know, for God's sakes, you did it. You know, you walked through the fear. And, you know, there's no guarantee that you have to love walking through the fear. You know? So, fake it till I make it. And, you know, I'm going to try to learn to like it. You know, love might be a little ambitious, but you know, this too, just this mindfulness and being present, you know, it's attainable. It's not easy for me, and yet it's worth it. You know, I find it's worth it. I'm worth it, which is progress.
That's right.
So
good for you. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
As Jeff was telling his story, it reminded me of me as my dad had dementia, and he was a pretty prominent guy in our hometown, and drove a big car and went to the country club. And after I got sober, you may recall the story, I did stop working with him. but I didn't cut off contact with him. And as he was failing mentally, he was still working, and for a while he still had a driver's license. And I would meet him on Friday evenings, and we'd go to the country club. And I was very clearly working a program of recovery. I was working to heal my relationship with him and try and be a supportive son as he was alone, and getting to the point that everybody was really aware that he was slipping. It was no longer me just thinking he was nuts. Everybody was aware that he wasn't playing with a full deck. And I was being dutiful, and it wasn't killing me. I had developed some tools. I had been aware that I was volunteering to do it. So on the whole, I wasn't being a victim. And this one night we had this quick meal together, and he was driving his car and I was driving my car home through a very residential area. And my dad was always a terrible driver, very aggressive driver. And as he slipped further and further, he was also a very skilled driver. So he was aggressive and all that, but he was, he could handle a car. We're driving through this dinky little neighborhood, and all of a sudden he's passing me. And I realized I wanted to run him off the road. I went from dutiful, loving son who was being wonderful and being helpful. The only reason I didn't run him off the road is I really liked my car. And this all transpired in about 3 seconds. And it was profound. I actually went to a support group for people with, that were taking care of people with Alzheimer's after that, and got a little education about the whole thing. But we talked about, that moment of anger, that moment of acting out that can destroy, really eons of good karma. I was just about there, and we're imperfect. And I expect that I'm going to remain imperfect, and I'm going to keep working on this stuff. But I am going to try to put the whip down when I blow it. Because that's a big part of my recovery. It's a big part of the practice, is to try to keep moving in a positive direction, but accepting my imperfections as that happens. Because otherwise, I'm just really, I'm not really getting the learning. I'm appearing to. It's sort of like when people are doing 12-step work to be good AAs. It can be really tedious. To me, there's a lot of shame-based AAs. And never say no to AA. I can never be good enough. I have to do this. I have to do that. That's just like the house I was raised in, where it didn't matter how much I did good. I wasn't going to measure up. And that's really not the purpose of what we're doing in AA. We do 12-step work to keep ourselves sober. We don't do 12-step work for furthering the glory of Alcoholics Anonymous, or for me as a great sponsor or great GSO or GSR, or someone that takes meetings into the prisons and the jails. It is really something that helps me feel better about myself, rather than make me a better meditator or a better Buddhist or a better member of a 12-step group or a better son or any of those things. And it's easy to lose that awareness in the vicissitudes of life. Yeah.
I first heard this at an earlier retreat this year, and I didn't want to hear it. I knew it, but hearing it really brought it to reality. Because I know we're born, and one day we're all going to die, especially those closest to it. But the woman that presented it, I mean, she said all of this, and then she spoke to it like you did, very personally. And I got to hear, her share that in reference to her parents, in reference to her husband. Because I'm in the midst of that now. All who is dear to me will change. I too have a father who's experiencing dementia and Alzheimer's. So he's not the father I knew. He's 91, and he just went into the hospital yesterday. Mm. My mother's 96, and she has a whole other thing of issues. And I don't know how much longer they're going to be here. Probably not as long as I'm going to be here if I'm fortunate. because of my sobriety, I know I'm probably going to be here longer than they are. But to accept that, you know, it's knowing it and accepting it, but when it actually happens, that's different. Because I'm not there yet. So I'm thankful that you presented it.
Oh, thanks.
It helps.
You know, one thing that helps me in those situations, and we learn it and hear it in the rooms all the time, is what can I bring positive to the situation? How can I help my parents die? Rather than, how do I hold my breath to keep them young and good looking and rich forever? They can't be, we can't be. So how can I make this situation better? And that's very freeing for me when I can remember it.
Yes.
Which isn't all the time. Who else has any questions or comments? Yeah, Curtis.
Hey, I had a experience with, on the subject. My grandmother passed away a couple years ago, and it was the first experience I had with death while being ingrained in this practice. And you know, I was able to be in the hospice, in the room with her, with family and friends, and watch the whole thing transpire, and kind of take that step back and you know, with the understanding of this reality, you know, of what we're talking about, and watch the love and the compassion and the family and everything that, you know, that goes on, you know, during that whole process, and the grief and the pain and you know, all those normal reactions that we have as human beings. You know, I like, and Jack Kornfield always says, you know, when we sit, we take our seat between heaven and earth, you know, and you know, some of the byproducts of meditation is, you know, reduces stress and blood pressure and all these, you know, kind of physiological effects. But, you know, in reality, you know, we're looking at the mystery of this, you know, incarnation. And, you know, he always tells that story about Ram Dass when someone brought up the question of his Jewish heritage and how he reacts to it, you know, and very witty, he responds, "I'm only Jewish on my parents' side." You know, and when we bring that, you know, that sense of wonder and awe into just everything, it's a really, really profound experience, and glad to be a part of it.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, about 2 years ago, my sister died. She was four years younger than me, and she had been sober for about 6 years, and then she went out and drank again. And she kept saying while she was just going down, you know, how she didn't want to die. Yeah, she didn't want to die, she didn't want to die, she wanted to die. And then one day we walked in and there she was on the floor. And she went in the hospital, went on life support, and I was there when she died, you know. And it's funny, I just felt like the need to say to her, because it seemed that she was struggling at the last, you know. I know she always was so afraid. She suffered a lot, you know. She couldn't let go of a lot, you know. And so I said to her, you know, it's okay to go. It's okay to go, because her kids were there, and I was there, you know. Family was there. It's okay to go. And she just took her last breath, and she died. And you know, for me, the grief was just like this shock. But at the same time, I came out of that. To this day, I don't really feel afraid of death, you know, because there was a peace there. I don't understand it, but there was a peace there. You know, she didn't say anything, you know. I don't even know if her spirit was still there. I don't know, but it was just something I felt. And so, I don't know, that's caused me to just really not be all that afraid of it, you know? I don't know, maybe that'll change. I hope not, you know? But, I don't know, I just thought I'd share that.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Steve?
Yeah, I kind of say it jokingly a lot, but blood, sweat, and tears is the peace you find in dying, at the dying time you're near.
That's true. Chris, is there anything up that you wanted to? Yes.
Hi, I liked what you shared about the parenting, because that's something that I have worked on since I had a baby 10 years ago, about the letting go, because I think with parenting, it's very clear that the people you love are always changing. There's just so much change, and it's you know, from the minute of separation of your body, just constantly letting go, you know, and when we were doing the walking meditation, I was okay with that at first, and then I sort of noticed her walking around like zombies, and I started laughing. And I couldn't stop laughing, but then I started crying, and I realized that, I mean, what came up is the sadness of letting go, because just where my kids are at, being away from them, just, mostly just like every once in a while, I feel they're moving, drifting away, and which is good, it's appropriate for their age. But it's very much, and I know from being a clinger, clinging, it really cripples the child. And they have to be willing to, you know, whatever, let them go and fall down. And I have to be willing, if we can even say that, if I have some control of it, but I have to, if I can accept that they might die, that's the ultimate thing. So it's better for them, because they need the freedom to go live a life.
It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
It's a lot of really important stuff that people are talking about.
I guess I wasn't going to talk. I was the baby of 10. And, in sobriety, I was fortunate enough that I was around some guys that Joanne, Mike, who I didn't get the fact that he used to come to meetings and he used to share about the time he was finally got to spend with his father as his father was slowly dying. He shared the fact that he was able to share that final moment of his father's life with him and help him cross over. Of course, at the time, you don't get it, because I'm like, I don't want to hear about that, I don't want to know about that. I'm a baby of 10. It's like I've already buried my grandparents, I've already buried my parents, my aunts, and my uncles, and my siblings were starting to go. And I didn't want to hear it. And then, one of my brothers contracted cancer 7 or 8 years ago. So I was in a situation where here I was now, responsible sibling, showing up at the hospital on a regular basis, and it's deep into the night and everybody else is gone, and I'm sitting there holding his hand, and he draws his last breath. For me that was a profound moment, and I never thought, that how profound it would be for me, the fact that, but after being an active alcoholic for 26 years and not really knowing my brother, to be able to get that moment was such a gift, and it wasn't that long after that I realized that I was going to bury them all, and sometimes I guess the only thing that is unsettling is, will any of them be there for me? But I'm also blessed that I've got a myriad of friends, I've got a lot of nieces and nephews, so it's an interesting place. It's very emotional for me, but there's not this overwhelming fear because I deal with it on a regular basis. I have this, I've got a niece with multiple sclerosis whom I probably will outlive. I've got multiple. I've got 3 sisters and 2 brothers left, and it's one of those things where if you're at peace with the universe, you understand that it's a part of the process. It never gets easy, you know, it never gets easy. It just gets, I guess you begin to accept it. You accept the process, and you accept the fact that is there a greater gift than being able to be there when they're in that much, if they're in that much fear. Hopefully they're not at that point, but if they're in that much fear, that you can be there and say, okay, you know, it's all right, you're not alone, you were never alone, and this process happens to all of us. So it's a good place to be, so I listened long enough, I guess I needed to share that.
Anybody else? Well, we're a little bit shorter where the schedule says we're stopping now, but I've had a lovely afternoon. And I want to thank you all, and I want to thank you all for what you've shared, because it's very important stuff. It's very possible that one or more of you are having feelings, and if you are, connect with other people and talk.